Warning: this podcast contains graphic content. Trigger warnings include descriptions of violence, torture, murder, and rape. Some episodes may include offenses against children. Please listen with caution, as this podcast is not meant for everyone. In the spring of 2011, 20-year-old Madison Scott and her friend Jordi traveled to Hogsback Lake, British Columbia. The girls had planned to set up camp, attend a few parties, and enjoy their weekend getaway. But when Sunday morning came, Madison seemed to have vanished without a trace. I'll take you through the twists and turns as we unravel the details of her disappearance. This is Madison's story. So grab your favorite mug, pour yourself a fresh cup of coffee, and join me as we delve into this mysterious case. I'm Shanda, and every week I'll take you through a deep dive into the dark shadows of true crime while sipping on our cup of joe. This week I decided to make a little latte with the Nespresso instant powder, a little bit of almond milk, and some peanut butter cheesecake sweetener. It is amazing, and I can't think of anything better. This is Missing, Murdered, and Macchiatos. On April 29, 1991, Dawn and Eldon Scott welcomed their daughter Madison Geraldine Scott into the world. Maddie had two siblings, a brother named Ben and a sister named Georgia. Dawn and Eldon decided to raise the kids in the small town of Vanderhoof, British Columbia, which at the time the population was about 4,400 people. It's known for its bird sanctuary that runs along the Neckarco River, which flows kind of through and around the town. Growing up in the small community of Vanderhoof, Maddie enjoyed spending her free time dirt biking, hockey, baseball, really anything that would allow her to be around people. And like every teenager, Maddie also enjoyed hanging out with her friend group, who were known to make amateur videos and had the most fun. Friends described Maddie as a social butterfly, generous, caring, playful, and most of all, spontaneous. After Maddie graduated high school in 2009, she began working as an apprentice heavy-duty mechanic in the logging industry, which is actually where her father had also worked. Her brother Ben tells a source that he remembers Maddie as the type of girl that was as comfortable in a dress as she was in work coveralls. So it was May 27th, 2011, when Maddie and her mother Dawn had lunch together, chatting about her plans for the weekend. A friend named Jordi, that Maddie had graduated high school with, had invited her to go camping at Hogsback Lake to celebrate one of Jordi's friends' birthdays. Maddie and Jordi hadn't seen each other since their graduation 2 years prior, so Maddie decided to cancel other plans so she could catch up with Jordi. Later that day, Maddie met up with Jordi, hopped in Maddie's white 1990 Ford F-150 pickup truck, and they headed east on Highway 16 for approximately 7 kilometers before turning right onto Blackwater Road and driving another 17 kilometers, taking them to the Hogsback Lake where they would set up camp for the weekend. This drive took about 20 to 25 minutes, and upon arriving at Forest Service Group campsite at about 8 p.m., she and Jordi began setting up the tent. Maddie had brought 2 tents. The first one that they tried to set up, they realized it was going to be too small, and so the second one, they realized Maddie had forgotten the tent poles at home. About 8:30 p.m., the girls drove back the 24 kilometers to Maddie's house. Maddie ran inside, spoke with her mother briefly, kind of just explaining the situation. Then she grabbed the poles and headed back out to Hogsback Lake. They got there just before 9:30, and so she quickly got the larger poles out of the truck, and she and Jordi finished setting up the tent and started to gather firewood, while other people were starting to show up for the party. The party started with about 10 people, and then more and more people started to show up, sort of uninvited. The host of the party had posted it on his Facebook page, and because they all lived in a small town, people felt comfortable just showing up. Now, if you're not from a small town, this might seem super weird, but the small town I grew up in, this would still be totally normal. People would print out an invitation to their bridal or baby shower and hang it up in the post office, or convenience store, and anywhere there was a posting board, instead of inviting everyone individually. So this resulted in the party being about 50 people. Around 11:30 p.m., Maddie was texting back and forth with her mother to ask about a song. Her mother said everything seemed fine in the texts, and the last text Dawn sent said, quote, "Good night, have fun, talk to you tomorrow." So Maddie had been online dating a guy that was at the party that night. However, he had told Maddie that he just wanted to be friends. Maddie was a little bit upset about it, as one would be, but it didn't cause any issues throughout the night. There was apparently another guy at the party that was interested in Maddie, but she didn't have the same feelings towards him. Partygoers say he seemed a little miffed about it, but nothing ever came of it and he must have decided to move on. Jordi also had a guy that she was seeing there who asked her to be his girlfriend sometime that night. She said yes, and they made it official. Around midnight, the partiers got a little rowdy, resulting in someone bumping into Jordi, causing her to fall close to the fire pit. She ended up scraping her knee and cutting her hand, and so with things becoming a little rowdy, the party started to clear out, bringing the party back down to about 10 people. Jordi, being intoxicated and injured, walked with her new boyfriend to find Maddie and tell her that she didn't feel like camping anymore and they were going to head to her new boyfriend's parents' house to spend the night. Jordi had asked Maddie if she wanted to come with, so she didn't have to stay alone, but Maddie wasn't thrilled that Jordi wanted to leave, as obviously she was looking forward to hanging out with her friend, drinking, and camping like they had planned. They had brought out and set up her family tent, and Maddie obviously didn't really know this man either, but obviously spending the night at some random's house with your friend and her new boo is a little bit awkward. So Maddie had asked her to stay as planned, but Jordi said that she was too drunk, hurt, and just wanted to sleep in a real bed. Maddie was upset about this, but stayed in her sleeping bag, and while Jordi and her boyfriend left, saying that they would come back out in the morning to grab her belongings. Maddie felt safe enough as there were other campers close by and the group of friends that were partying was also nearby. About 12:30 a.m., Maddie gets a call from an unnamed young man whom her parents said was a close friend of the family and was also camping nearby. It's unsure if the call was answered or what was said during the call, but between 1:40 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., people started leaving the party in smaller groups, many of them seeing Maddie in the tent and asking if she wanted to leave with them, but she kept declining. No one knew that this would be the last known sighting of Maddie. At about 8:30 the next morning, May 28th, Jordi and her boyfriend drove back to Hogsback Lake to pack up her sleeping bag and clothes. As they parked their vehicle beside Maddie's truck, Jordi noticed that the tent was unzipped. When she stepped into the tent, she saw that Maddie's sleeping bag had been pushed to the side, but Maddie wasn't in there. So unsure of what she had gotten up to last night after Jordi had left the party early, she didn't think too much of it, grabbed her belongings, zipped up the tent, and headed back to Vanderhoof. Jordi never mentioned to anyone about not seeing Maddie, and she also didn't try to reach out to her, which it's kind of odd that she didn't even send a text just making sure that Maddie got home or whatever, apologizing about the night before. But at about 10:30 a.m., the host of the party came back to the site to tidy up from the night before and prepare for the party coming that Saturday night. He had noticed that Maddie's tent was zipped up, but he didn't bother opening it as he assumed that she was still sleeping inside of it. He finished tidying up and headed out. During the day, Dawn, Maddie's mom, had tried calling her phone a few times but no answer, which didn't raise any red flags right away as they knew the cell phone coverage was spotty in the remote campground and assumed that Maddie was just busy with friends and would get back to them later on in the day. Saturday night came, bringing a bigger party to the campsite and hosting approximately 150 people. Apparently, during that party, somebody had fallen on the tent and flattened it, but among the group, no one had known that Maddie had not been seen or heard from since 3:30 Saturday morning. When Sunday afternoon came around 12:30, this was about 36 hours of not hearing from Maddie and her not making it home. Dawn tried calling her daughter. This time, the call went straight to voicemail. Dawn decided to call Jordi's mother, Debbie, to see if she had seen or heard from the girls. Debbie tells Dawn that Jordi had already come home alone Saturday morning because she had to work Saturday evening. And after hearing this, Dawn and Eldon decided that they would take the short journey to Hogsback Lake and look for Maddie. When they pulled up, they noticed that the tent was collapsed and her truck was parked beside it. The truck was locked, but inside they could see Maddie's purse and the rest of her belongings, and in the box of the truck, there was some of her dirt bike equipment, gas like jerry can, and a cooler that still had beer in it. So Eldon started to speak with the campers across from Maddie's tent site, and they had said they knew who Maddie was, but they hadn't seen her since they had only arrived Saturday afternoon and didn't notice her at the party Saturday night. With no sign of Maddie and having no contact with her for over 24 hours, her parents quickly reported her missing to the local RCMP. While they waited for RCMP, they began walking the trails close by to see if maybe she had went for a walk or got injured on the trail before she was about to head home. At the time Maddie went missing, she was 5'4", approximately 170 pounds, green eyes, shoulder-length red hair, a left-sided nose piercing, multiple ear piercings on both sides, and an outline of a bird tattoo on her left wrist. Maddie was last seen wearing a black t-shirt and blue jean capri pants, and was assumed to have gone missing between 3:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. The first few days after Maddie disappeared, police began searching the lake area with help of search and rescue members of the community. They were searching by foot, quad, horseback, helicopters with infrared cameras, divers, cadaver dogs, boats with sonar, and vehicles with zero result. The area was dense forest and a very difficult grid search, but in the end, Maddie was also reported wearing flip-flops, which would have been very uncomfortable to walk in if she had left on foot. The RCMP also considered Maddie possibly going for a walk into the woods and having an encounter with wildlife, as that area is popular for bears, cougars, wolves, but with that there would have been a scene, blood. Animals usually don't eat every last bit of a human, there's usually something left behind. But it was also possible that Maddie had went for a swim in the lake and accidentally drowned or got hit by some sort of watercraft. After a few days with no signs of a struggle, an encounter with wildlife, or possible drowning, police believed that Maddie had taken her iPhone 4 and truck keys and willingly left in a vehicle with somebody that she knew. Jordi had initially been a person of interest because of her suspicious behavior in the beginning. The fact that she had came back to the campsite and did not mention to anyone that she hadn't seen Maddie, and she also didn't try to reach out to see if Maddie had made it home or had a good rest of the night, but in the end, she had taken 2 polygraphs with the RCMP and was cleared. About a month later, on June 22nd, Maddie's family announced that they had a $50,000 reward for anyone with information leading to an arrest. Don and Eldon made their own command center in their basement, putting up lists of everyone that attended the party so they could start conducting their own investigation. They had found video footage of Maddie at a liquor store and buying snacks before the party on Friday, but that was about all they could find, as the rest of the time she was in the woods. In August, a couple of experienced search dogs searched the area around Hogsback Lake again, along with a few private properties that were close by, but nothing was ever found, not even a scent. This confirmed that Maddie most likely left in a vehicle. RCMP had cleared all of the partygoers that came forward, including Jordi, the guy who had flattened her tent, the phone call friend, and the guy that had a thing for Maddie but she didn't have feelings back. At this point, they had no choice but to chase the rumors that were going around to see if any of them had truth to them. One of the rumors was that Maddie had overdosed on drugs or had gotten alcohol poisoning, and people at the party panicked and hid her body. Another rumor was that Maddie got into a fight that left her injured, but the people at the party covered it up. A third rumor was that Maddie was dating a friend from baseball, and drug dealers kidnapped her to teach him a lesson. This man came forward right away, he cleared his name, and coincidentally, about 7 months later, he went missing, and 3 weeks after that, he was found decapitated as part of a gang-related incident. 4 people were arrested and charged with his murder, and the RCMP came forward saying that these cases were definitely not linked. By September, RCMP had interviewed over 50 people, and not a single one of them mentioned anything about a potential accident, fight, or overdose. And it's possible that 1 or 2 of the friends might be able to keep a secret like that, but the chances of 50 plus people committing a crime and keeping it a secret, and not one of them alluding to an incident, was highly unlikely. Maddie's parents were desperate for answers, and on November 27, 2011, there was 6,000 of Maddie's missing person flyers handed out to individuals that attended the 99th CFL Grey Cup that was hosted at BC Place Stadium in Vancouver, BC. On December 2nd, 2011, RCMP posted a mock-up video of Maddie's movements and party the night that she went missing to see if it would trigger any memories or any new tips, but no one ever came forward. They even allowed other members and fresh eyes to look over the case, but no one could come up with any explanation or any new information that may have been overlooked. On May 28, 2012, the anniversary of Maddie going missing, there was still no information and police were running out of leads. Maddie's family organized what would turn into an annual poker ride, which was a fundraiser and a search of all of the trails by Hogsback Lake campsite on whatever you could get into the forest and water. So they did it by foot, boat, horseback, quads, you name it. This fundraiser allowed Don and Eldon to raise the reward from $50,000 to $100,000. By the time November 2012 came around, the show 48 Hours, which was produced by CBS, came out with a special called The Highway of Tears. This show featured the women found along Highway 16 between Prince Rupert and Prince George, BC. This included Maddie and Alberta Williams, who was our very first episode. And if you haven't listened, I'd love it if you could so we can spread more awareness. But this documentary helped spread awareness across Canada and the US. There was another documentary produced in 2014 called The Vanishing of Madison Scott, which it was a more accurate representation of the people involved and the information surrounding Maddie's disappearance, as she only got a few minutes on this episode of CBS and the information wasn't exactly correct and they made Jordi out to seem like very suspicious. But both documentaries produced some tips, but nothing that would lead to finding Maddie. Maddie's family continued to hold the annual fundraiser on the anniversary of her disappearance, and they would search and spread awareness, hoping that someone in the area would come forward or slip up, but no one ever did. That was until May 2023, when a tip came in to RCMP. A decade went by with very little information and movement in the case, but on May 29, 2023, 12 years and 1 day after Maddie had went missing, police finally made the announcement Maddie's family had been waiting for. They had located and identified Maddie's remains. It is believed that RCMP received a tip resulting in the search of a private property located on South Slope Road, approximately 18 kilometers from Hogsback Lake and 10 kilometers from Vanderhoof. An inside source says that apparently the owner of this property had contractors come out to test topsoil when they came across a skull. This led to the search. It's unlikely the father knew her body was there when he invited out contractors to survey the property around where her body was dumped. Don and Eldon Scott, along with Maddie's siblings, were finally able to bring Maddie home. On June 4th, 2023, they held a vigil at the Nekako Valley Secondary School, bringing over 1,000 people, most showing up in hockey or baseball jerseys to honor Maddie Scott's love of sports during her life. It has been another year and a half with no further answer. Now, because there was only remains left of Maddie, it's assumed that unless there was an extreme act of violence, her exact cause of death could be difficult to determine. Please keep in mind the Scott family is still offering $100,000 to information leading to the arrest and charges of whoever did this to Maddie. So please, if you have any information on the night or nights leading up, no matter how small it is, call. Anyone who may have information that might help is asked to contact the Vanderhoof RCMP at 250-567-2222. Or you can anonymously contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. And remember, you do not have to reveal your identity, and you can even submit it online at www.pgcrimestoppers.bc.ca. It seems that the Scott family is so close to coming to a conclusion of what happened to their daughter. Please just need your help to continue the investigation and obtain warrants. If you have any thoughts or insights about Maddie Scott, I would love to hear from you. You can follow me on Instagram at missing.murdered.macchiatos, and I do also have it linked in the show notes below because I know it is a mouthful and a typeful. You never know who has information that might lead to an arrest in this case, so don't forget to like, follow, and share with a couple of your besties, and then I can also continue making content and spreading awareness about these cases. Remember that every cup of coffee can be a moment of connection and conversation, so let's keep these discussions alive. You can also join me next week as we dive into another chilling tale because the truth is often darker than we imagine. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and keep sipping. Bye for now.